When you're white, you're right. To be honest, I don't think you could ever fix white privilege until white people recognize and face the reality that white privilege exists.
Personally, I don't believe it's real, or that it's prominent. So I don't want to say fix it because it's not really a problem. But the way to handle that mindset is to figure out not necessarily what that person is doing. But when you start worrying about what everybody else is doing, things you can't control, then the things you can control start getting worse.
My understanding of white privilege is that it's that white people have a certain advantage over that, whether it's in the workplace, in daily life, wealth, social class, anything like that.
Can I use an analogy to describe? Okay, it's like a group of people sitting in a room, and like the white people are at the front of the room, and they can't see what's behind them. And say that they're all like shooting balls of paper into like a wastebasket, and the white people have this privilege because they're at the front of the room, but they can't tell that the people behind them don't have that same privilege because they're facing the front of the room. And even though they might not have like the skill required to make it into the basket, just the fact that they're in the front of the room gives them privilege over the others in the room.
I want to be real. I'm never worried about if white privilege existed around me. I come here to go to school and play football. So I've never bothered to look at anything like that.
I mean, it's there. Like, I think it's, for the most part, it's like a subconscious thing that no one really realizes is there. It's just like, anytime you have a foreign name, you tend to get passed up for like job opportunities and things like that, because people automatically assume things based on what they see.
A lot of white people are blind to the fact that white privilege exists. And a lot of black people, we just we know it exists, but sometimes we don't even, because when we point out the fact that something is biased or favored to white people, or they have a privilege, it's sometimes seen that we're throwing a race card. And we, as colored people, we don't want that stigma. You always throwing a race card. You always, why you gotta make it a black and white thing? But that's what it is,
People will see a struggle, instead of going back and figuring out what the real issue is through trial and error, or just through figuring that out, one way or another. We find the simplest solution, and we just look for something that's kind of not so much a solution, but more of a side effect of what's going on. And we just blame it on the side effect.
I really don't think I've experienced it in many of my workplaces where I've worked. I've never really had any advantages over other people.
Some white people can be able to walk down the street and not be seen as a threat. They have that privilege. Or you can automatically be seen as a genuine, nice person, somebody who's not trying to cause trouble. I don't have that privilege myself. I'm darker, I'm bigger, I'm blacker, and a lot of people see me as a threat. A lot of people think that I'm mean, because I just don't crack a smile all the time. And, I feel like if I was white and kept the same demeanor, I could be seen as a good dude. I just keep to myself.
I work with our athletes, and most of them are African American, so in that case, I'm the minority. But we're all just kind of on the same, playing field there, no pun intended. But everybody's equal at work, and then here, in my classes, nothing really matters here.
They don't want to recognize that it exists, because the moment you recognize that I have a privilege, that I have something that other people don't have, then that makes you look bad. But as long as you deny it, everything is okay.
I mean, I don't notice it that much, for me at least, just because I'm a woman, and a lot of times people don't think women can do things. So, I mean, there are some instances where I've seen it, but most of the time I see it more towards men, and it's really frustrating.
If I had to use one example of where you might see white privilege, one example that a lot of people use is the Greek life system here. They look at it, they say, well, you have all the IFC fraternities that are predominantly white, but you can look just as quickly and say, well, all the NPHC fraternities are predominantly black. That's kind of the focal point of sample sizes you can use, I think, in my opinion, is Greek life, when you see the most interaction among students. Would you disagree?
I feel like we all have preconceived notions about everyone around us.
People think black people are violent, they're this, they're that, but yet I can just walk on by and no one questions.
some stereotypes exist. We can't fight that. They happen. But at the end of the day, there's always more in common with each other than there is not in common.
I think people are going to need a reality check and like to just take a step back and like, you know what, I'm a person just like they're a person, just like he's a person and she's a person. And it's going to be tough, and a lot of people aren't going to want to accept it, especially here in the South, because some things still haven't changed. There's a lot of racism here, so it's going to take a while here. But I think we're moving in the right direction, especially people like our age are changing it. But it's going to take a while. But we'll get there.